Collective and Pan-African Television, I'd like to welcome you to yet another edition of Wednesday Palaver. We all know that a week ago, the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign and the Accra Collective of the Socialist Movement of Ghana organized a massive demonstration in protest and in solidarity with the people of Palestine in the wake of the events that are happening in Gaza. We all know that the situation has not changed. In fact, it has intensified and more Palestinians are being killed, and it is still our responsibility to continue to provide an analysis, to continue to give information on what is happening so that we Ghanaians can be abreast and to continue to intensify our solidarity to the Palestinian people who are going through an apartheid regime and a genocide regime by the Israeli Defense Forces. So today we are providing this platform again, and today we have with us one of the members of the Accra Collective and also an ardent member of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign to give us an update as to what is happening. So let's put our hands together and welcome Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jnr.
Well, good evening, comrades. What we are about to discuss today is a very important topic. It's a very important topic because developments in Palestine could lead to an escalation throughout West Asia and have repercussions for all of the world. We are discussing Palestine today, and we are discussing Palestine within the context of national liberation struggle. We are discussing Palestine within the context of festering racism, extreme racism. And we are discussing Palestine today because of some of the things which have been happening for 75 years, and also some of the things which have happened since October 7th. This is the broad context within which we want to discuss, Palestine. Now, the reports we have are that on 7th October, a group of Hamas militants, fighters, went into certain parts of southern Israel and waged a struggle. And in the process, about 1,400 Israelis were killed. And more than 200, we still don't know the exact number, were taken as hostages into Gaza. Now, the reaction from the reactionary centers of the world, the United States of America, Ghana, Britain, France, and so on, has been that because of this attack on Israel, Israel has a right to defend itself. And Israel has a right, therefore, to intensify its aggression on Palestine. Now, it seems strange that the United States of America, the government of Ghana, and others have taken this position. Now, this is simply because the colonial occupier in international law has no right of self-defense. Indeed, it is only the occupied which has a right of self-defense. Insisting that the colonial occupier has a right of self-defense is to turn international law upside down. And I don't think that there's any doubt at all that Israel is the colonial occupier currently practicing apartheid. And within that context, those who insist on the right of Israel to defend itself are terribly mistaken, and in the face of the law are on the side of the oppressor against the oppressed. Now, having said this, it is also very important for us to note that what the Israelis suffered, or claim to have suffered on 7th October, has been a daily occurrence for the Palestinian people over the last 75 years. And there are many, many things that we can recount. Indeed, since January, between January and October 7th, the Israeli authorities, apartheid authorities, had killed more than 300 Palestinians, shot some of them in the head, including journalists and so on, just simply killed them, and so on. So killing of civilians and so on is the daily reality of the Palestinian people. Now, if you went back to 1967, the June 1967 war, you would appreciate that the Israeli aggressors actually occupied Palestine. They occupied Palestine, certain parts of Palestine. They occupied the Golan Heights. They occupied the Bakai Valley, and so on, in 6 days, you understand. Now, if the Palestinian people were to react to the Israelis the way that the Israelis are encouraged to react today, what would have happened to Israel? So it's important that we understand this. Now, when the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, spoke on the Palestinian question, he made a point which needs to be amplified. And his point simply is this, that October 7th did not happen in a vacuum. What could he possibly have meant? Simply put, all he meant was that there's a context within which one has to place October 7th. And that context is a context of occupation, it's a context of apartheid, it's a context of the oppression of the Palestinian people for 75 years. And that is the context within which October 7th, happened. Now, there are some who like to dwell on the history, 75-year-old history, and so on. It's important in the discussion of this topic, but I think that there are other things that we need to highlight. One, if you follow the history, it was the British colonial authority in Palestine that decided to give part of Palestinian land to the Zionist movement for the establishment of a Jewish state. Now, the important question is whether Britain had the right to give part of Palestine to some entity to form a state. That land did not belong to Britain. And Britain could therefore not have handed it over to the Zionist institution to establish the Israeli state. Britain did not own the land. It is like us in Ghana, and at a certain point, Britain was a colonial power in Ghana, deciding that, from Mankesim all the way to Elubu should be given to some people, whoever they are, to come and establish a new state there. What would be the morality of that offer? What would be the legality of that offer? And I think it's important that we avert our minds to that. Now, as Africans, I think it's also very important for us to realize that in discussing what lands to make available for the establishment of a Jewish state, Palestine was not the only place which was considered. Indeed, they also considered Uganda as a possible place to establish a Jewish state. Now, this is important because if Uganda had been offered for the establishment of the Jewish state, what would have been happening to the African people today? And in any case, if this talk about promised land is to be accepted, then why is the promised land? Is it Uganda or Palestine? Why did Uganda come into the equation when the justification is that the land was given to them because that land had been promised by God? Had God also promised, Uganda and so on? So the history, we can go into the history and so on. But it's important for us to recognize that there's been a lot of fluff around the issues. I mean, until recently, everywhere you went, many people in Ghana actually believed that this was a conflict between Muslims and Christians. Now, I think the scales are falling off many people's eyes, and we do know that this is not a conflict between Muslims and Christians, and that in reality, there's a conflict between a colonial apartheid occupier and the indigenous people who have the right to struggle for self-determination. That has become very clear. But if I may just explain a little. You know, Israel is a Jewish state. It's a theocracy. It's a state whose founders pretend or claim that it's a Jewish state. Now, why I say this is that Orthodox Jews do not accept Israel as a Jewish state. Indeed, Orthodox Jews are opposed to the establishment of a Jewish state. And you see them all over social media, you see them on television stations and so on, making their points as clear as possible. But if you accept Israel as a Jewish state, then there's no way you can come to the conclusion that Israel is a Christian state. Because Judaism and Christianity are poles apart. First, Judaism is based on the Old Testament and completely rejects the New Testament. Christianity is derived from both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And the New Testament is actually the fulcrum on which Christianity is built. Now, Judaism also sees Christianity as idol worship. Judaism does not accept the concept of the Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Completely rejects the concept of the Trinity. And it thinks that that concept of the Trinity is idolism. It does not see how a man born of a woman can be described as God. Because Jesus Christ, the Son, is supposed to be part of the Trinity. And Judaism rejects that completely. You understand? Now, in addition to that, it's important to recognize that Jesus the Christ was a Palestinian. Jesus the Christ was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is not in Israel. Bethlehem is in Palestine. Indeed, the birthplace of Jesus the Christ, which is now the Church of Nativity, is in Palestine. So Jesus was a Palestinian. Now, since this onslaught against Gaza started, and also parts of the West Bank and so on, all of us have heard the Christian community in Palestine crying out, making complaints about how Jewish settlers have been spitting on them, desecrating their holy places of worship and so on. We've heard the stories of how churches have been bombed and so on. So it is clear this religious dimension has just been introduced as part of the false propaganda of this Zionist, colonialist, apartheid, occupationist entity. And that ought to be clear. I do not intend to dwell too much on that. I intend to dwell on some of the propaganda that we are hearing from Israel and its supporters. And one of the things that we are being told is that this Hamas is a terrorist organization. Now, what is terrorism? Is Hamas truly a terrorist organization? Now, to be able to come to any conclusions, to be able to answer this question, I think we ought to see the context within which terrorism, the terrorism tag, is being spread, around the world. And we cannot forget that Israel was a full collaborator of the apartheid regime in South Africa. Indeed, Israel provided intelligence to the apartheid regime in South Africa. Israel provided weapons to the apartheid regime in South Africa, and so on. And there must be good reason why Israel, collaborated with the apartheid regime. Now, in the days of struggle against apartheid in Israel, the Western countries and their surrogates, including Israel, labeled Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress and its military wing as terrorist organizations. So if today they are labeling Hamas as a terrorist organization, it is clear that they are putting Hamas, Nelson Mandela, ANC, and others in the same basket. Now, do we accept that the ANC was a terrorist organization? No, certainly not. Do we accept that Mandela was a terrorist? Certainly not. Certainly, Israel has gotten something wrong about its definition of terrorism. And clearly, we perhaps may want to see Hamas as a national liberation movement. And in seeing Hamas as a national liberation movement, we cannot simply forget the fact that all truly, genuinely national liberation movements across the world were seen as terrorist organizations. And that is the context within which Hamas is labeled as a terrorist organization. Now, within the last 32 days of war, Israel has actually murdered more than 10,000 Palestinians, about 70% of whom are women and children. Those who have been murdered have included health workers, they've included aid workers, they've included school children, they've included mothers and grandmothers and so on, civilians. Now, Israel's explanation is that these people have died because Hamas uses them as human shields. Okay. Now, if Hamas is using them as human shields, what does it mean? It means that Hamas puts them in front. The Hamas army puts these women and children in front as cover. Okay? Now, if that is the case, if Israel is able to destroy the shields, it must get to the Hamas fighters. Not so. 10,000 people have been slaughtered by the misnamed Israeli Defense Force, and our brother Blaze also described them as Israeli Defense Force. What is defense about that army? There's nothing defense about that army. That's a misnaming of an organization. Now, so after killing 10,000 innocent civilians who they claim Hamas is using as human shields, where are the Hamas people they've managed to catch or kill? After 32 days, the war is still raging. Hamas, yesterday alone, destroyed 11 armored vehicles. Hamas, as at this morning, was still firing rockets into Israel and so on. So this whole idea of human shields and so on simply doesn't make sense. The reality is that Israel is not discriminating at all. It is bombing schools, it is bombing UN shelters, it is bombing hospitals, and yesterday its forces actually attacked an aid convoy. Now this is an atrocity that we cannot accept, and it's an atrocity that we must condemn with all vehemence. It's an atrocity that the world, needs to stop. Now, the other dimension of this war is the blatant, absolute blatant hypocrisy of the United States of America. The United States pretends to be on the side of the Palestinian people. And yet, it is the same US administration which is supplying weapons to Israel to kill them. It is the same US administration which has sent its warships, aircraft carriers and so on into the sea to deter others from attacking Israel and so on. Now, President Joe Biden has been saying, now, he didn't say that in the beginning, but now he's saying that, look, the Gazans are suffering. They don't have medical facilities, they don't have drugs and so on. They don't have bread to eat, they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have fuel. And therefore, there should be humanitarian pauses to allow food to reach the Palestinian people. Now, I think we probably need to do a little translation. Now, what is America saying? Let there be humanitarian pauses so that you can send food to the Palestinian people And at the end of the pause, Israel can go and kill them. So give them bread to eat, but continue killing them. That is the policy. Clear. It cannot be any other policy. Have a humanitarian pause, give them some food to eat, give them some medicines, but the next day go and bomb them and kill more. I mean, I cannot believe it. And I don't know where this whole idea of humanitarian pauses is coming from. This is a stupid genocidal war of aggression which must stop once, now, finish. Because the humanitarian pause means that stop small and continue later. Continue what? Killing children, killing women, killing innocent people. That should not be the demand of the world. The world's demand should not be for humanitarian pauses, not even an end to the genocidal aggression, but an end to occupation. Because occupation is the cause of the problem. Occupation is the cause of the war. So we do not demand humanitarian pauses. We do not demand a ceasefire. The only demand that is on the table ought to be the demand for an immediate end to occupation. Now, the Israeli propaganda machine is busily trying to deal with the allegation that it is an apartheid state. It is clear, it's an apartheid state. In Israel, there are roads for Israelis and roads for Palestinians. Palestinians are not allowed to use roads designated for Israelis. What is that? If that is not apartheid, what does apartheid mean? Living apart from each other. Living apart from each other. And clearly, in Israel today, there are roads for Palestinians and there are roads for Israelis. That is apartheid. Look, anybody who claims to be a Jew, anywhere in the world, can come to Israel, seize Palestinian lands, and build a home for himself. Anybody. All you have to do is to claim to be a Jew. Palestinians who have been expelled from their homeland, whose houses have been seized and are in exile, have no right to return to Palestine. If this is not apartheid, what is apartheid? If this is not apartheid, what else can be apartheid? Now, clearly, I believe that these last 32 days or so have contributed significantly in promoting a better understanding of the situation in Palestine. Indeed, this weekend, I saw on television screens across the world 30,000 citizens of the United States of America marching on the streets and calling for justice for Palestine. I saw them in London, I saw them in Bonn, I saw them in Riyadh, I saw them on the streets of Accra, saw them on the streets of Lagos and so on. And that clearly is the indication that the world is waking up to its responsibility in the fight against apartheid, colonialist, Zionist occupation of Palestine. Now, it's important to note that some countries have even gone a step further. And today, as we speak, more than 6 countries have broken diplomatic relations with Israel. These countries include South Africa, includes Chad, includes some of the Latin American countries, and I'm told Turkey and others. I think it's important for us to use the same methods that we use to defeat apartheid South Africa, to defeat this monstrous regime which has no regard for human life. And one of those will be to advocate a complete boycott of Israel. Total diplomatic boycott of Israel. Total trade boycott of Israel, as we did to the apartheid regime. And I'm hoping that this new trend which has emerged will continue to spread, around the world. Yesterday, I saw an interview which was granted by the Israeli ambassador to Ghana. And of course, that interview perhaps did more damage to the so-called cause of Israel than anything has done. This ambassador actually says that there's no need for a ceasefire, the war should continue. And her reason for insisting that the war should continue is that if there's a ceasefire, Hamas will reorganize, rearm itself, and continue to be a threat to Israel. Now, let me make this point here, that Hamas is not the group of soldiers you see coming out of tunnels and using crude oil, crude weapons to disable Israeli tanks. Hamas is an idea. Hamas is an idea. And ideas cannot be killed. Hamas is an idea of liberation. Hamas is an idea of Palestinian resistance and so on. So this whole dream about finishing Hamas, uprooting Hamas, I think is a stupid daydream which would never be realized. Now, every day, Israel drops bombs on Gaza. Every day, Israeli forces make incursions into the West Bank and arrest Palestinians and kills them. They create more Hamases. The man who has lost all members of his family, his grandfather, his grandmother, his mother, his wife, and his 3 children. What have you done to him? He has become more potent than Hamas. That man has become more potent than Hamas. And out of that man will spring forth more Hamases and so on. So Hamas cannot be killed. And those who sit in Tel Aviv and little corners of Jerusalem and dream that one day at some point they will be able to finish Hamas are only joking. In any case, they shouldn't forget that they thought that if they killed Yasser Arafat, the resistance of the Palestinians will collapse. They killed Yasser Arafat, and today, look at the resistance they have on their hands. This mentality of imperialism, this mentality of colonial occupying forces and so on, is a mentality that is not logical, that will not achieve the results they wanted. They went into Iraq on the basis of a lie. The United States of America and its allies went into Iraq. At the end of the day, they killed 1 million people and more. They've had to leave. They couldn't conquer the Iraqi people. They couldn't stay in Iraq forever. They've had to run away. 2 days ago, militant forces in Iraq were shelling US bases in Iraq. After killing 1 million people, the resistance did not die. The resistance is still there. They went into Afghanistan. How many people did they not kill in Afghanistan? What atrocities did they not commit in Afghanistan? Bombing wedding parties and so on. They have had to leave Afghanistan. The Taliban is still in control. So what makes them dream dreams that they'll be able to uproot Hamas and establish their dominance in Gaza? I mean, today I was listening to Netanyahu. And what is he talking about? That they will control Gaza. They will control the security. Those are daydreams. It's never going to happen. The resistance will continue. The resistance will continue until every inch, every centimeter of Palestinian land has been liberated. The resistance will continue until the Golan Heights return to its legitimate owners. The resistance will continue. It will continue until the territory of Lebanon occupied by Israel returns to the Lebanese people. The resistance will continue until territory of Jordan occupied by Israel is returned to its people. The resistance will continue until occupation in Palestine comes to an end, until all Palestinian refugees have a right to return to their homeland. The resistance will continue until the people of Palestine are freed from colonial oppression like all other people in many parts of the world. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Comrade Kwesi. At this juncture, we'll call on the studio audience. If you have a comment, a question, clarity, point of clarity, let me see by hands. Yeah. So Najib, Comrade Mensah, Frank, are you shaking your head? Okay, and then Frank. So we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the resistance indeed continues. Now, like the main speaker rightly puts it, now they are running away from the fact that we describe them as exactly what they are, a terrorist state, an apartheid state. What is a terrorist state, or what is terrorism? A terrorist, a group of people who unleash terror on innocent civilians for political reasons. And that is playing right before our eyes today. Israel is proving its terrorist nature to the world. Now, when we say they are an apartheid state, again, why do we say they are an apartheid state? Racial discrimination and social segregation is what is eminent in Palestine today. You have had people occupy other people's land and divide them based on this is an Israeli, this is a Palestinian. And there are schools for Israeli people, there are schools for Palestinian people. You have settlements where Palestinians cannot go to. You have places where they cannot buy houses. You have Palestinians unable to come back to their homes, like he rightly said. So you are nothing but a parasitic apartheid state. That is what you are. Israel is parasitic in the sense that it is surviving on the tax paid by the people of the United States of America. It is surviving on the tax paid by people in the United Kingdom. Without taxes trickling in from these places and from most parts of the world, Israel will cease to exist. So it is a parasitic apartheid state, and the people will continue to resist every inch of oppression and repression on them. Now, the last point I want to make before I sit down is that they have said this attack on innocent Palestinian people is because of Hamas. Now, data and facts checked proves that Israel provided a lot of intelligence for Hamas people when Hamas was up in arms against Yasser Arafat and his administration. You provided funding for them. You helped Hamas to be what it is today. Today you want the world to condemn what you created, what you helped to create. In any case, if you are going after Hamas, go after Hamas. Why the innocent people? Why are you bombing hospitals, rail lines, schools, mosques, churches, and other places of worship? What is happening today is not acceptable. These are crimes against humanity, and those responsible for what is happening today, when the balance of forces change, when the balance of forces tilt the other way, they should know that they will be held responsible for every crime they have committed against these good people. Thank you.
Good evening, studio audience and viewers up there. Well, today I have to thank my boss, There are so many things I didn't know, but today it's opened up my mind to think aloud concerning these Palestinian issues. But my challenge, and that's a very big challenge, and I'm shocked about the behavior of the leadership in Ghana. Kwesi Pratt mentioned countries that have even broken relationship, but I think he failed to mention Malaysia. And Malaysia is also one of the countries which is their broken relationship with Israel. But Ghana was in the forefront with Malaysia during the struggles for liberation, for the non-aligned movement and the rest. Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. All the time we knew Ghana to be on the side of the oppressed in the days. Go to the UN and almost all the time Ghana voted in favor of Palestine. Why is it that at this current moment, these are dispensation, the leadership of Ghana either abstain? When you abstain in the point of brutality, it means you are supporting those who are enacting the brutality. Why? Right? Things are not going good for the Palestinians. It can happen anywhere. We believe that people who are suppressed everywhere should be liberated. So we shall keep on with this struggle, no matter the cost. And we live here to say to the Palestinians that they shouldn't worry. We will be with them even in the trenches. If we come necessary, we shall put on Yasser Arafat garment and join them to the struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, comrades. I would like to seek for clarity and also to pass this comment. Last month, when the strike started coming, the war started emerging, I posted something about free Palestine whilst I was in the church. And a friend of mine was sitting beside me, and then he was like, "You are in a church and you are talking about free Palestine. Do you really want to go to heaven?" Because from what he was saying was that according to the Bible, he stated that Philistines are more or less like the people who are living in the present day Palestine, and he was saying that the Bible even instructed the Israelis to go to that land and then kill the people living there, and then they should live on that land. That this has been the justification of what some Christians believes, and then this is what is happening now, that we, the youth that even go to church, we believe that supporting Israelis, Palestine, you are Antichrist. So I want to make it clear, it's about humanitarian thing that we are all fighting for. For instance, if somebody comes to your house and then says that what he believes is telling him that he should come and kill you and your family and then live in your house, let's justify these things in this kind of scenario, and then you see that little children are dying in Gaza. They are bombing hospitals and all that. I read from Al Jazeera, from the news, that more than 100 people who are living on dialysis machine are now out of the hospital, and some are dying. So I also make this seek for clarification, that is it really true that in the Bible that is what they said? Thank you.
But Frank, if you are prepared, I'll be calling you soon to come and read the text messages. Then I'll call Comrade Kwesi to come back and then close us up. I just want to make two. Oh, your hand is up also. Okay. No, come and ask a question.
Yeah, my question is simple. I just want to know a bit of the Hamas. I don't know much about them, so I want to know a bit of.
All right. I wanted to make two quick points. In 2008, Barack Obama, of course, I'm at the different sides of the political divide with Barack Obama. I don't agree with his politics. But in 2008, he asked a very, very important question to the Israelis. he asked them that they should show us where is their boundary. Because for every defined state, one of the basic features is that you must have a defined territory. So Israel should show us where is their what? Their territory, their boundaries. And they have not been able to do that because that's one of the, and Najib, you mentioned it, that is one of the features of an occupier. You don't have a definite territory. Because if you look at the map of the so-called Israeli state from 1948 till today, you see that it keeps extending, which is one thing that we should pay very important attention to. The second point I want to mention is that, look, the foundation on which Israel is founded is a very, very weak foundation. It's a very weak foundation. There is no way that foundation can stand, the test of time. And we've seen it before. No colonial power that has existed in the surface of the earth has lasted. And Israel is certainly going to fall. It's just a matter of when. So Frank, come and read the messages that we have, and then Kwesi can round us up.
Thank you, comrades. We have just some few messages, starting from the first message. He was saying that until we stop worshipping the West and America, they will dominate and dictate. We are in the 21st century, but we still see America and UK as the most blessing an African will receive. The Jewish are just confused. If the promised land is in heaven, why are they still not fighting? Why are they still fighting physically and not fighting spiritually to heaven? The hypocrisy is too much. Obed from Cape Coast. And the second one too is from Ahmed Tamale. And Ahmed is still okay. So, hi, program host. A good number of contemporary theologians are totally skeptical and of the versatility of the attitude conduct of the contemporary alleged Israel Jew in the Middle East is actually in conformity with the 10 original commandments of God, giving the earthly humanity for symbiotic and sustainable type of mutual designed tenet for societal consistency written in the Holy Scripture, i.e. the Bible. For it seems the modern era Israel Jews are not followers of Moses, but rather followers of Judah Iscariot, betrayer of Jesus Christ. If not a segment of absolute atheistic society. That is coming from Ahmed from Tamale. And then when these are the test messages, and let me read from the Facebook Live. It's a nice explanation. This is coming from Tete Abraham. Francis from Kaswa, he is saying that good evening. Dr. Mahmoud Bamia is not, sorry, Francis. We are talking about Gaza. This is coming from Ko Minsa Pila. He's saying that, oh, sorry, Ko Minta, we are talking about Gaza. Okay, so that is all what we have.
Well, it does appear that time is running so fast. We have news in the next 2 or 3 minutes, and we have to bring the curtains down on this conversation. One of the studio audience wanted to know what Hamas is. Hamas is the military, the Al-Qassam Brigade is the military wing of Hamas. Hamas is a national liberation movement dedicated to liberating Palestine from colonialism. So simply put, that is what it is. The war is still ongoing, and I believe that all of us have a duty to continue expressing our solidarity with the Palestinian people until final victory. Thank you very much.
All right, this is where time will allow us. We encourage all our viewers to continue to keep their dial on Pan-African television for more updates on the situation that is still, ongoing in Palestine. the Socialist Movement of Ghana and the Palestine Solidarity Campaign will continue to see what forms of action will continue to take here in Ghana with solidarity with Palestinian people. This is our commitment. This is our unique struggle that we have to involve ourselves in directly. The African people have gone through this experience, and we know what it means. And so this is our commitment, and we have to hold the fort for our Palestinian comrades. So thank you very much, studio audience, for joining us. We'll see ourselves again next week. Goodbye.
Truly African.
Hello, information.
Madam,
Me, I have still not got the money for that list of expensive building materials you sent to me. The price of the iron rods have been increased too much, are they?
Madam, relax. Look, that's not why I even called. I just visited IPCP, where the engineers told me everything about your fast floor.
Trawanko, please, those people are expensive. Are they not the people building those big houses in town? I beg,
Madam, in fact, I used to think the same until I visited their office today.